Hello and welcome to this lesson. Today you're going to learn how to use such as and as such. So the same two words, but you're using them in a different order, which means you're using them in two different ways. And this is a question that a student asked. It's a great question, so I'm happy to answer it for you. Of course, I'm Jennifer from JForrestEnglish.com, and this channel is dedicated to helping you feel confident speaking English in public so you can take your career and your life to the next level. Now, before we go any further, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. Now let's dive in with this lesson. First, let's talk about how to use such as. So such as, this is really easy one. This is used to introduce an example. For example, I could say, the store sells many electronics. Now, I want to give examples. I want to give examples of the electronics. So that's when I can use such as, and then here are my specific examples. The store sells many electronics, such as phones, computers, and speakers. So that's a really easy to understand way how to use such as. And as you can imagine, you'll get lots of practice with this because it's very common to list examples when you're making statements. Before we go on, just notice that in writing, you need a comma here. And that comma is just there for grammar purposes. But in spoken English, we verbalize commas with pauses. So you want to take a slight pause before you give your examples. The store has many electronics, such as phones, computers, and speakers. So make sure you get your comma there. Now let's look at another example. Many countries, such as Canada, have 4 seasons. Here, this one, don't get confused because what do you notice here? We have the verb have, right? Now you might be thinking, but Jennifer, Canada is singular. It would be conjugated as it. It have. That's not right. You can't say that, right? That would be grammatically incorrect. It have 4 seasons. No, you can't say that at all. What do you have to say? It has 4 seasons, right? That would be how you say this grammatically. But here's the thing. Let me put a little check mark there. Okay, but here's the thing. In this example, have is not being conjugated with Canada. That's not what it's being conjugated with. So who knows? What is it being conjugated with? Well, our subject is many countries. And what does that represent as a subject? I, you, he, she, it, we, they. Which one? It's, of course, they. Many countries, they have. So that's why we're using have. Now, this might confuse you because I didn't put any commas here. But you can imagine all of this information is considered separate because when information is in commas, it's considered optional. You could just get rid of it, right? Like look at our example above. The store sells many electronics. I could just end it with a period right here, end the sentence entirely. So the information after the comma is not required. So this information, such as Canada, is not what our verb is being conjugated with. Our verb is being conjugated with countries. So that's a really important note. Even when you don't have commas, you still have to ask yourself, what's my subject? And that will tell you how to conjugate your verb. Now, if you're wondering, the comma is optional with one example. To be honest, I would add commas. I think commas just look nicer in writing and it helps you understand the idea better. With the commas, a native speaker would know that this have is being conjugated with they. But even without a comma, I think a native speaker might make this grammar mistake as well, because they would see Canada and assume that's the subject. But if there's commas there, then you understand that the information is additional. So it's optional. I would use it, but I didn't, just because I wanted you to see this example. If you have 2 or more examples, then the commas are required. So just keep that in mind. Of course, the commas are for written English, but remember they are verbalized as pauses in spoken English. So remember, it's simply used to introduce an example. Now you can think of it as the same as saying like. For example, many countries like Canada have 4 seasons. So notice here, I said like instead of such as. Many countries like Canada have 4 seasons. Our rule with the conjugation is exactly the same. Such as, you consider this more formal. It's more common in writing. If you use like in writing, it's a little too casual, to be honest, in writing specifically. If you're writing to your friends, that's fine. But if you're writing for any sort of professional reasons, it's better to use such as, because it is more formal. In spoken English, though, this is where things are different, because in spoken English, we prefer a more casual conversational tone, even if you're giving a formal presentation in spoken English. So it is more casual, but it's more common in speaking, because that's what we prefer in spoken English. We prefer a more conversational, casual tone. So now let's talk about as such. I'll be honest, this one is a little more advanced, so take your time with it. You may need to review this a few times as well. As such, you can think of it as being what is indicated. I know that probably doesn't tell you anything, doesn't tell me much either. Being what is indicated, don't worry, it will make sense once we review the examples. But what you need to know is that it represents a noun that was previously mentioned. This is extremely important. And that the noun, that's the being. And what is indicated is just what is already mentioned. Okay, so that's kind of what it means. It's just a noun that was previously mentioned. So let's take a look at this. I'm an English teacher, true story. I'm an English teacher, and as such, I notice a lot of mistakes native speakers make, not students, native speakers make. I'm an English teacher. Whoa, it's a tongue twister. I'm an English teacher, and as such, I notice a lot of mistakes native speakers make. Now, what does this as such represent? Well, remember, it's a noun that was previously mentioned. What's the noun that was previously mentioned? An English teacher, okay? So you can think of such just as the noun. As such, it equals as an English teacher. That's exactly what it means, okay? So that's the easiest way to think of it. Whenever you want to use as such, just ask yourself, what's the noun that was already mentioned? And then you just add as in front of that noun, and then you replace the noun with the words such. That's what you're doing. You're keeping as and you're replacing the noun with such. Now, I could say I'm an English teacher, and as an English teacher, I notice a lot of mistakes native speakers make. This is grammatically correct, but what do you think about this sentence? I don't know about you, but I don't like the sentence very much because it's repetitive. It makes the sentence so long. And what's the point of repeating your noun twice? You just don't have to do that. It's repetitive and there's a better way to say it. And what we do is we just replace our noun with such. But remember, we need to keep the as. So we keep the as and then we replace the noun with such. Since this is a more advanced expression, let's look at another example. He's the former president. And as such, he has a security detail 24/7. A security detail is just a security team. The word detail, it just means team. I don't know why, it's just the language that they use in the security world. Now, here we have as such. What does such represent? Do you know? Well, it represents the noun, right? So ask yourself, where's my noun? The former president. As the former president. That's what such represents. So here we go. As such, as the former president. Again, I could definitely say he's the former president, and as the former president, he has a security detail 24/7. Yes, this is grammatically correct, but it's repetitive, and there's a better way to say it, and that's to use as such. So you're only going to use as such when you have the noun mentioned and you want to use the noun again. Because of that, it's a pretty distinct way, and it's not one that you're going to use every single day. It's probably a less common option, especially compared to such as, which is extremely common. So such as is extremely common because it's very common to give examples. As such is not as common simply because it's not common to have your noun and then immediately say your noun again, right? Now, there are different sentence structures with as such, so let's just review the 3 sentence structures here. You can say, just like I did before, he's the former president, and as such, he has a security detail 24/7. So notice the placement, it's in between, but also notice there's commas before and after. And what do we do with those commas in spoken English? We take pauses. He's the former president, and as such, he has a security detail 24/7. It tells us to take a pause in spoken English. Now, you can also just create 2 sentences. He's the former president, period. That's a complete sentence. Now, I'm going to begin my sentence with as such. You could use and as such, but starting a sentence with and is a little more casual and you don't really need it. So it would be better just to get rid of it. He's the former president. As such, but notice this comma is mandatory. As such, he has a security detail 24/7. Now, one final sentence structure option, which isn't as common, but I wanted to include it, is having as such at the very end. This isn't as common, but you may see it. He's the former president and has a security detail 24/7 as such. Remember, this is just saying as the former president and has a security detail 24/7 as the former president, as such. So this one isn't as common, but you may see it. So here's the summary of everything we just covered. I wanted you to see them side by side on the same screen. So go ahead and take a screenshot of this now, or if you're a little more old school, you can hit pause and write this down with a pen and piece of paper. If you're going to take a screenshot, let me give you a nice smile here since I'm in the picture. So go ahead, take your screenshot, hit pause if you need, and here's your summary of how to use such as and as such.
Awesome job. So now it's your turn to practice. I want you to leave 2 examples, one with as such and one with such as, in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. And before you go, make sure you head on over to my website, jforrestenglish.com, and download your free speaking guide. In this guide, I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. And until next time, happy studying! Awesome job expanding your vocabulary with all of these confusing words, but now you feel confident using them, right? And I'll see you in my next video. Bye!